He was always so immaculately dressed, 6'2" with those shoulders, you know what I mean? Always had that, I wouldn't say austere, but he had a kind of a majestic quality, almost a royalty quality about
elegante.
it. Yeah, that's the word, elegante. He was a superbly elegant guy on every level.
He was getting away, and Joe saw, by God, he not only was playing baseball, having fun, but he was being paid for this. And making the San Francisco Seals was, in its own way, the ultimate of athletic baseball success. It seemed as if he was walking on air. He would glide through the stadium. He would glide through a restaurant.
He'd round first, man. He would slide on that asphalt. And good night, that would take a little height off your sides, but it didn't mean anything to him. He just wanted to be sure he got to second base.
People used to pile around him like it was like he was God Almighty. And everybody loved him, and it was Joe DiMaggio, and that was it.
Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? A nation turns its lonely eyes to you. You're looking for a hero, something to believe in, something to tie us all together in a noble, uplifting way. That's what Joe was.
Joe made it a point to come out last all the time. So he would be by himself when he came out of the dugout. And the people naturally, hey, there goes Joe DiMaggio. See, there's Joe DiMaggio going by. See, made it a point to let everybody know it.
We used to call him Joe. I mean, he was a loner anyhow, He was alone. He was by himself all the time. He was by himself. I don't know why.
I was asked to go to Vietnam in the winter of '67 with Joe DiMaggio. I guess I should say I went for the benefit of the soldiers. I knew that was part of it, but I really went just so I could meet Joe DiMaggio.
He wouldn't do anything he didn't want to do, believe me. And he really didn't need anybody. You know what I mean?
Joe was quiet old man. He was quiet. No, he'd go down a wharf and nobody would know he'd be there.
Joe was the first one we knew like a friend. He was in our lives. His stance, his smile, the woes of his famous and fragile body, the quaver of his voice.
Well, I'm just taking my natural swing at the ball, but naturally I would like to break the Babe Ruth's record of 60 home runs.
He put his foot under the table and if he needed a deuce, he'd hit my foot with 1, 2, and I'd give him the deuce. Come around and give him the deuce. If he needed a 4, he hit 4 times, 1, 2. By the time we got through playing cards, I needed a new shine.
You say, is this absurd or what? Well, it's not absurd. I was a kid and I felt that way about Joe DiMaggio.
He can do everything. And I think deep down he knew he had it, But he never bragged, he never talked about it.
Baseball, baseball, baseball. He ate and slept baseball. Joe DiMaggio, when he playing ball, he knew what he was doing. He knew every move.
Ted Williams, the greatest hitter who ever lived, once said something shocking about a rival. He admitted, "I always felt like I was 2 steps below him. I never thought I was ever as good." Who could make the man who batted .406 feel inferior? Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee Clipper. 56 consecutive games with a hit, a .408 average during that stretch, only 7 strikeouts. 80 years later, nobody has come close. But here's what stunned the baseball world. It was not just the numbers. It was what everyone said about him. Opponents, teammates, even the man who ended the streak. Drop a comment with your favorite Yankees legend. Let us start with the rival who admitted defeat. 1941. The most remarkable season in baseball history. Ted Williams batted .406. Joe DiMaggio hit safely in 56 straight games. 2 legends at their absolute peak. The media could not stop asking, who was better? Decades later, Williams gave his answer. I never, ever compared myself to him. I thought there never was a greater player in the history of baseball. For me, just to be mentioned in the same breath, I always felt like I was 2 steps below him. Think about that. Ted Williams, the man who studied hitting like a science, who mastered every aspect of the swing, admitted he felt inferior. He continued, I felt that just to have my name mentioned with Joe, it elevated me. There was only one guy I saw you could mention in the same breath, and that was Willie Mays. But here's the twist. DiMaggio privately criticized Williams. He thought Ted focused too much on hitting and neglected base running and fielding. He even dismissed Williams for never winning a championship. Yet publicly at his retirement press conference in 1951, DiMaggio called Ted Williams the greatest natural hitter he ever saw. Williams knew about the private remarks. He never responded. He just kept praising Joe. But it was not just rivals who were in awe. Even his own teammates could not believe what they saw every single day. Yogi Berra, the Hall of Fame catcher, said something remarkable. He never did anything wrong on the field. I had never seen him dive for a ball. Everything was a chest-high catch, and he never walked off the field. Manager Joe McCarthy explained why. Joe did everything so easily. You never saw him fall down or go diving for a ball. He did not have to. He just knew where the ball was hit, and he went and got it. A reporter once asked McCarthy if DiMaggio could bunt. McCarthy looked at him and replied, "I do not know, and I will never find out either." Why waste the talent of a natural power hitter? Phil Rizzuto, the Yankees shortstop, witnessed the effect. There was an aura about him. He walked like no one else walked. Players just watched what he did and tried to imitate him. Everyone gravitated to him. Everybody wanted to be like him. Pete Sheehy managed the Yankees clubhouse. He described Joe in one word: class. When Joe DiMaggio walks into the clubhouse, the lights flicker. He is the star. DiMaggio had a simple philosophy. There is always some kid who may be seeing me for the first time. I owe him my best. But there was one stretch where even perfection faced pressure. May 15th to July 16th, 1941. 56 consecutive games with a hit. 91 hits. A .408 batting average. 15 home runs. 55 runs batted in. Only 7 strikeouts. He faced 43 different pitchers. George Sisler's modern record of 41 games fell. Willie Keeler's 1897 record of 44 games fell. DiMaggio entered uncharted territory. Radio broadcasts interrupted programming with updates. The nation was obsessed. Carl Hubbell, the Hall of Fame pitcher, explained the fear. Lou Gehrig is great, of course, but somehow you do not get the same feeling when he is at the plate as when DiMaggio comes up. July 17, 1941, Cleveland Municipal Stadium. 67,468 fans packed the ballpark. DiMaggio stepped up in the first inning. Third baseman Ken Keltner was playing deep. DiMaggio later said, "My God, he was standing in left field." DiMaggio lined a ball down the third base line. Keltner made a backhanded stab behind the bag, threw across his body, and barely beat DiMaggio to first. Seventh inning, same thing. Another screaming line drive. Another backhanded stop. Another out. Eighth inning, bases loaded. DiMaggio hit a ground ball to shortstop Lou Boudreau. Double play. The streak was over. Boudreau remembered, you could hear everybody's heart pounding, on both sides. Keltner never felt like a villain. Decades later, he said, "Somebody had to do it. I am glad he hit them to me. I am glad I am remembered for something." Before the game, a cab driver told DiMaggio the streak would end that night. 30 years later, the man found Joe and apologized for jinxing him. DiMaggio told him he had not. The next day, DiMaggio started a 16-game hitting streak. Years later, a young player would try to fill those shoes. 1951. A 19-year-old kid from Oklahoma joined the Yankees. Mickey Mantle, the future. Joe DiMaggio was 36, battling injuries, playing his final season. Manager Casey Stengel told Mickey, "Take everything you can get over in center. The Dago's heel is hurting pretty bad." DiMaggio was not warm to the young player. He felt threatened. A PBS documentary later revealed he was crappy to Mickey Mantle. People who encroached upon that, whether physically or symbolically as Mantle would. Here is the guy who is going to replace Joe. Well, Joe does not want that. When DiMaggio announced his retirement, Mickey said, "All I can do is my best. It is a great break for me." but I sure hate to see old Joe leaving the game. Despite the cold treatment, Mantle never stopped idolizing DiMaggio. He said, "Heroes are people who are all good with no bad in them. That is the way I always saw Joe DiMaggio. He was beyond question one of the greatest players of the century." Years later, Mickey called him the best all-around baseball player ever. On Mickey Mantle Day, Mickey gave DiMaggio a plaque. It read, "If I have a plaque out there, Joe's should be a little bit higher." When Mickey died, DiMaggio did not attend the funeral. He had business overseas. At Old Timers Day, even after Mickey's death, DiMaggio insisted on being announced last. Yet DiMaggio did acknowledge Mickey's talent. Mickey has grown up. It takes some players longer to arrive than others. Lefty Gomez explained DiMaggio's mindset. He knew he was Joe DiMaggio, and he knew what that meant to the country. DiMaggio protected his legend carefully, but his impact reached far beyond Yankees pinstripes. Stan Musial, the Saint. Louis Cardinals legend, played in the National League. Different teams, different league, intense rivalry. He said, "There was never a day when I was as good as Joe DiMaggio at his best. Joe was the best, the very best I ever saw." Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947. DiMaggio was already in his later years. Robinson said, "Although he was over the hill when I first saw him, I could visualize how good he must have been. Joe DiMaggio was the best all-around ball player I ever saw." Roger Ailes grew up in Ohio. He remembered, "As a child in Ohio, I was only afraid of one man coming to town, Joe DiMaggio with the New York Yankees." Toots Shore owned a famous New York restaurant where sports stars gathered. He observed something remarkable. There was never a guy like DiMaggio in baseball. Joe was a hero, a real, legitimate hero. Joe could halt business on Fifth Avenue by walking down the street. Every generation found something different to admire. The 1930s and 40s saw the elegant player. The 1950s witnessed the legend who walked away with dignity. The decades after saw a symbol of excellence that no longer existed. And that impact extended far beyond the diamond. Writers, politicians, even diplomats found themselves drawn to number 5. Ernest Hemingway wrote The Old Man and the Sea in 1952. The old fisherman draws strength from DiMaggio. The great DiMaggio. He would be proud of me today. Hemingway said there was a majesty in his swing and a self-assured confidence in style and conduct that was uniquely Joe DiMaggio's. Henry Kissinger became Secretary of State. He confessed, "If you told me in 1938 that I would be Secretary of State and I would be friends with DiMaggio, I would have thought the second was less likely than the first." 1968, Paul Simon wrote Mrs. Robinson. The line became iconic. "Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? A nation turns its lonely eyes to you." DiMaggio was confused. "What I do not understand is why you ask where I have gone. I just did a Mr. Coffee commercial. I have not gone anywhere." Simon explained patiently. It was not about physical absence. It was about the disappearance of the American hero from popular culture. After DiMaggio died in 1999, Simon reflected, DiMaggio represented the values of that America, excellence and fulfillment of duty, combined with a grace that implied a purity of spirit. Kevin Costner said, "Men like Joe DiMaggio are not just of their own time. They are men for the ages." So what made DiMaggio different? Why do players still measure themselves against a man who last played in 1951? Ted Williams said he was 2 steps below DiMaggio. Now we understand why. It was not just talent, it was consistency, dignity, awareness of what he represented. DiMaggio had a code. There is always some kid who may be seeing me for the first time. I owe him my best. This was not marketing. This was how he lived. Every game mattered because to someone, it always did. December 11th, 1951, his retirement speech. When baseball is no longer fun, it is no longer a game. And so, I have played my last game of ball. I feel that I have reached the stage where I can no longer produce for my ball club, my manager, my teammates, and my fans the sort of baseball their loyalty to me deserves. He walked away on his terms, maintaining the standard until the end. The 56-game hitting streak. 80 years later, nobody has come close. Pete Rose reached 44 games in 1978, still 12 games short. The record is not just about skill, it is about mental toughness under relentless pressure. DiMaggio proved excellence is not about flash. It is about showing up every single day at your absolute best. You ought to run the hardest when you feel the worst. Drop a comment. Could anyone break the 56-game streak today? If this inspired you, smash that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear about impossible standards. Joe DiMaggio never had to tell people he was great. He just showed them every single day.